When you track the decline of My Little Pony through its later seasons, a lot of it can be put down to the writing staff increasingly pandering to the adult fanbase, whether that be by embracing the fandom's bizarre fetishization of side characters, or its obsession with lore and world building and a dumb slapstick show about colourful talking horses. However, there is one occasion in which I believe the show pandered to Bronies in just the right way, and it doesn't get nearly the appreciation it deserves. Now, calling Sounds of Silence underappreciated may seem like an odd statement considering this episode is really popular with Bronies, but you know that fixation on lore and world building I already referred to? Yeah, that's what this is all about. Bronies loved this episode primarily because it gave them a new mythical creature to add to their lore wikis and transform their OCs into. Now, don't get me wrong, the Kirins are a really nice design. I particularly like how their more earthly colour palette subtly differentiates them from regular ponies. That being said, story is king and aesthetics on their own mean nothing. It's what you do with them that counts, and that's where the real genius of Sounds of Silence is. Curiously, it's not actually until quite a way into the episode that we get our first glimpse of the Kirins, and in fact one of my only criticisms is that we could have got to the main thrust of the story a little sooner. I mean, was this weird scene with the end of the line pony really necessary? It doesn't add anything beyond further establishing what we already know, that these characters are in far away uncharted territory and anything is to be expected. We also get an argument between Applejack and Fluttershy, our main protagonists for this episode, which does at least serve a function as it ties into the theme of the story and why Applejack and Fluttershy have been chosen for this particular friendship quest. The two have naturally clashing personalities, Applejack the hard-headed and practical one, while Fluttershy takes a more sensitive and compassionate approach to situations. It's a contrast that has brought them into conflict before, however they are able to resolve their disputes in a healthy way, unlike the Kirins, who we discover have taken a vow of silence because the way they see things, there are only two options: let their arguments get out of control until they turn into Nyrics and destroy everything, or avoid confrontation altogether. Basically, the rest of the episode is about the Kirins learning to communicate like grown-ups and control their aggression. Now, that in itself would have made for a decent moral if the episode had just stopped there, but it actually goes a step further by showing that not only can anger be managed, but sometimes it is appropriate, like when Autumn Blaze uses her Nyric form to stop the other Kirins from silencing AJ and Fluttershy. And yes, in this situation she should rightfully be angry. They were literally about to take her new friends' voices away against their will just because they were having a perfectly normal disagreement. All too often in media, anger and confrontation are portrayed as something solely negative, so it's refreshing for a kids show to acknowledge that these things are in fact healthy and necessary, especially because demonizing people for their perfectly valid and reasonable emotions is a pretty common gaslighting technique, which we'll be touching on again once we get to review Series 8 of Doctor Who. What makes the message of Sounds of Silence particularly interesting is how it seems almost tailor-made for Bronies. See, the Brony community was built around the principles of tolerance and acceptance, where weirdness is just kind of seen as the norm, which makes sense given that liking My Little Pony back in 2010 was in itself considered pretty taboo. Now, tolerance as a value sounds nice on paper, but what it actually translates to in reality in the case of the Brony community is a haven for socially stunted adults severely lacking in introspection. Bronies are an awful lot like the Kirins. They are generally extremely averse to confrontation or just having any kind of difficult conversations. Whenever they are forced to, things usually get blown way out of proportion. I'm going to make a comparison with the Doctor Who fandom, as I think it illustrates the point well. For those who don't know, we recently had a few sexual predators exposed in the online community, and among them was Tom Vance, someone previously well known and respected. As soon as this broke, almost every reviewer, creator, or prominent member of the fandom immediately, and quite rightly, spoke out in condemnation of his behaviour. It was not enjoyable for any of us, but we did it, because we recognised how serious it was. Now, what do you think the response from the My Little Pony fandom was when popular reviewer Toon Critic Y2K was caught sexually role-playing with a minor and numerous other predators were exposed in his wake?
Huh. Quiet bunch, ain't they?
Well, I mean, a few of Toon Critic's colleagues did release PSAs that largely amounted to moping about how personally hurt and betrayed they felt, because who cares about the victims, right? One tone-deaf asshole even suggested that the victims should forgive their abuser. Yes, that actually happened. Meanwhile, all of the same people were very reluctant to comment on or even just spread information about any of the subsequent predators who were unearthed, because, you see, in the minds of Bronies, anything that doesn't directly involve you, no matter how serious, is drama, and drama is bad. bad. It's the same attitude I consistently encountered so many times over the years I was involved in the community, and it's why I have no problem describing Bronies as socially stunted. Going back to the episode, although I said earlier that the themes were pandering, I suspect in all likelihood they weren't written with adult fans specifically in mind, and it's important to state that the message is also a great one for kids. I mean, if it wasn't, then Sounds of Silence would fail as a piece of children's entertainment, which is the whole reason it exists. But it is uncanny how much it applies to Bronies as well. It might not be the sort of pandering the fandom asked for or wanted, but it is what they needed. And did the Bronies listen or take heed in any way? What do you think? They're all too busy designing their new Kirin OCs.